Good day everyone, I am Fabian from Fair Consulting Group Philippines. Welcome to the part 2 of our presentation on how to establish a foreign company in the Philippines. In the previous video, I covered the different business structures that can be established in the Philippines, opening a TITF or Treasury in Trust Fund account, and registration process with Securities and Exchange Commission or the SEC. Now, in the part 2, I will discuss the registration with the Bureau of Internal Revenue or BIR, Local Government Unit or LGU, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas or BSP, Philippine Health Insurance Corporation or PhilHealth, Social Security System or SSS, and Home Development Mutual Fund or Pag-ibig. Now, let's proceed with the next steps in the registration process after obtaining the SEC Certificate of Registration. The next government agency application process that I will discuss is the Bureau of Internal Revenue or BIR. The BIR is mandated by law to assess and collect all national internal revenue taxes, fees, and charges, and to enforce all forfeitures, penalties, and fines connected therewith, including the execution of judgments in all cases decided in its favor by the Court of Tax Appeals and the ordinary courts. All types of Philippine businesses are required to register with the BIR, whether they are set up by a sole proprietor, a partnership, or a corporation. Taxpayers are required to register with BIR on or before the commencement of business, before payment of any tax due for corporation, and before or upon filing of any applicable tax returns, statement, or declaration as required by the tax code. Taxpayers shall be registered at the appropriate RDO based on the location or address of the taxpayer. First step in the application to BIR process is to prepare all the required documents such as the BIR Form 1903 for application for registration, BIR Form 1906 for application for authority to print receipts and invoices, BIR Form 2000 for documentary stamp tax declaration, photocopy of SEC Certificate of Registration, and board resolution for company setup. Additional documents may be required by the BIR such as a copy of the passport ID of the directors reflected in the board resolution for company setup with 3 wet signatures and a copy of ID of the authorized representative with 3 wet signatures. Once all documents are completed, go to the new business registrant counter of the Revenue District Office having jurisdiction over the registered address of the business for assessment of registration. Pay the documentary stamp tax or DST if applicable at the authorized agent bank. Proceed to Authority to Print section for the application of ATP and registration of books of accounts if applicable. Wait for the scheduled release of the BIR Certificate of Registration together with the BIR Ask for Receipt Notice and Authority to Print. The registration with the Bureau of Internal Revenue is now completed. Let us now proceed with the registration to the Local Government Unit or LGU. Local governments are political units composed of provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays. They have been existing with their own legislative bodies which are endowed with specific powers as defined in the Revised Administrative Code and Individual Local Government Unit Charter. It is important to register with the LGU for legal compliance. Operating without LGU permits exposes business to penalties, fines, and even closure. Before a business can operate in the Philippines, it is a must to secure a barangay clearance and a business permit from local government unit where the business is located. LGUs can be cities or municipalities, and the procedure for obtaining a permit may vary depending on the local regulations and ordinances the city or municipality seeks to implement. Before you register with the City Hall to secure a business permit, you must secure first a barangay clearance. The barangay clearance is a prerequisite for obtaining a business permit since it serves as an official endorsement from the barangay that your business is allowed to operate in the community. The local government requires this clearance as part of the regulatory process. Here are the process flow and requirements in securing a barangay clearance. Prepare the necessary documents for the barangay clearance application such as the application form, SEC certificate of registration, contract of lease, barangay clearance and business permit of the lessor, and board resolution for company setup. Once all the documents are completed, please go to the barangay having jurisdiction over the registered address of the business and submit all requirements to assess the application. Once the assessment is done, proceed to the cashier for payment and wait for the release of the barangay clearance. Once you have secured the barangay clearance, you may now apply for business permit to the City Hall. Here are the process flow and requirements in securing a business permit. Prepare all the required documents for the application such as the notarized application form, barangay clearance, SEC certificate of registration, lease contract, comprehensive general insurance, community tax certificate, and board resolution for setup. Proceed to the business permit section of the City Hall to assess the application. Once the assessment is complete, proceed to the Treasury or Accounting Department for the payment of registration fee. Go back to business permit section for the release of business permit. The registration with the local government unit is now completed. Let us now proceed with the registration to Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas or BSP to secure a Bangko Sentral Registration Document Certificate or BSRD. The Bangko Sentral Registration Documents or BSRD is a document issued by the BSP to allow non-resident investors to buy foreign exchange from the local banking system for the repatriation of their capital and remittance of earnings back to their country of origin. It serves as a proof of registration for foreign investment and contains a list of non-resident investors' onshore investments, such as those in the Philippine Stock Exchange, and allows access to FX resources through authorized agent banks or Forex Corporation. Under Section 32 of Manual of Regulation on Foreign Exchange Transaction or FX Manual, the registration of inward investment with the BSP or registering authorized agent bank is optional. It is required only if the FX needed to fund the repatriation of capital and remittance of earnings thereon will be purchased from authorized agent banks or their subsidiary or affiliate foreign exchange corporation. Next, we move on to the registration with the mandatory social benefit agencies including the Social Security System or SSS, Philippine Health Insurance Corporation or PhilHealth, and the Home Development Mutual Fund or Pag-ibig. The registration with these agencies is required only after hiring a local employee. Let's begin by discussing the registration process with the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation or PhilHealth. The Philippine Health Insurance Corporation or PhilHealth is the Philippine government's health insurance program that provides medical coverage of Filipino citizens. It helps to pay hospitalization, treatment, and other healthcare services through contribution from employees, the employer, and the government. PhilHealth employer registration is the process by which a company or employer registers with PhilHealth to obtain a PhilHealth employer number or PIN. This registration ensures that all employees are covered under the National Health Insurance Program, giving them access to medical benefits and financial assistance for healthcare needs. Here is the list of the primary and supporting forms and documents that are needed for the registration with PhilHealth. Here is the process flow for registration with PhilHealth. First, prepare all the primary and supporting documents for the application. Once all the required documents are completed, go to the PhilHealth branch that has jurisdiction over the employer's address. Submit all the required documents for the assessment of the application. Once the assessment is completed, wait for the release of the PhilHealth Certificate of Registration. Next mandatory social benefit agency to be registered with is the Social Security System or SSS. The Social Security System or SSS administers social security protection to workers in the private, professional, and informal sectors. Social Security provides replacement income for workers in times of death, disability, sickness, maternity, and old age. SSS is established by virtue of Republic Act No. 1161, better known as the Social Security Act of 1954. SSS employer registration is the formal process by which an employer, business, or individual who hires and employs people registers with the Social Security system in the Philippines. The registration is a crucial step for the issuance of an employer ID number and compliance with the Social Security regulation as provided in the Social Security Act of 2018 or RA 11199. Here is the list of the primary and supporting forms and documents that are needed for the registration with SSS. Here is the process flow for registration with SSS. First, prepare all the primary and supporting documents for the application. Once all the required documents are completed, go to the SSS branch that has jurisdiction over the employer's address. Submit all the required documents for the assessment of the application. Once the assessment is completed, wait for the scheduled release of the SSS Certificate of Registration. Last mandatory social benefit agency to be registered with is the Home Development Mutual Fund or Pag-ibig. Home Development Mutual Fund, also known as Pag-ibig Fund, established by the Philippine government in December 1980 as a provident fund for Filipino workers, focuses on its twin mandates of provident savings and home financing for its members, the Filipino workers. The Pag-ibig employer registration is the mandatory process where businesses and employers register with the Home Development Mutual Fund to comply with the government regulations. Pag-ibig employer registration ensures employees contribute to Pag-ibig and qualify for benefits, allow employees to access housing loans, savings programs, and other financial assistance, and help businesses comply with the law and avoid penalties. Here is the list of the primary and supporting forms and documents that are needed for the registration with Pag-ibig. Here is the process flow for registration with Pag-ibig. First, prepare all the primary and supporting documents for the application. Once all the required documents are completed, go to the Pag-ibig branch that has jurisdiction over the employer's address. Submit all required documents for the assessment of the application. Once the assessment is completed, wait for the scheduled release of the Pag-ibig Certificate of Registration. The registration with the mandatory social benefit agency is now completed. That wraps up the process of establishing a foreign company in the Philippines. We hope you found this video informative. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us through the email address displayed on the screen. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching and we'll see you on our next video.